Sam Dando, thank you so much for joining us today for another episode. It's only been a few episodes since we talked to you last, but thank you again for joining us again here on Machine Heads, man. How are you?
Good, good. Yeah, thanks, Ryan, for having me. Yeah, it's been a little while, but yeah, good to be back.
Yeah, a little longer than I like. I like to have Sam Dando on at least every month or so. So that's right. All right. Well, cool. Well, last time we were talking about mini skids, or actually stand-on mini skids, and today we're also going to be talking about a new mini skid, but a couple of other buggies as well that you guys have released together. And we were discussing this before we actually started recording here, but the thing that they kind of have in common, and they're already complementary machines, but the other thing that they have in common with this new stand-on loader and the two buggies that you guys have introduced is they're all electric machines. And you guys already had an electric dingo, an e-dingo, kind of on the smaller end. Now you've kind of introduced a slightly larger one, but kind of let's start off. We're going to get into the details on all three of these machines, but let's start off with you kind of giving us the. You said there's a little bit of a interesting story or a backstory kind of behind these three machines kind of being released at the same time. So yeah, give us the
Sure.
backstory.
Yeah, it's a neat story. We here at Toro, we start these new projects. Any project, I've worked in other divisions as well, and you start a project, it's got its own unique project team. We do all of our research individually on the project. But what happened with these two, we developed the electric buggies and the electric tracked dingo. We started actually meeting as two separate project teams. We actually started meeting together because they had similar challenges. We ended up using the same batteries, our Toro Hypercell battery system, the same charging system, and so we had a lot of things. And so we wanted to work closer together as two project teams to try to commonize some of these systems and not try to solve problems individually as different project teams. So we started doing that. And then we started going out. We spent a lot of time with customers, and we do that normally here. But with these ones, we're trying to get into this interior construction and demolition space. And we had, the project manager for the buggy project found a good customer to go visit and say, hey, we want to try them. And I was on the electric eDingo project. I said, hey, why don't I just bring it along? So same kind of customer, and so we brought it along, and it worked really well because the customer started using the eDingo, our new eDingo TX, but it was a prototype at the time, started using it to load the buggy, which seems obvious now, but
Right.
maybe not then. And so they started working together. And so from there forward, really over the past year or more, every single customer visit we've been on, we've brought all the machines, the buggies and the dingo with, and we started calling them. We joked internally, they're like peanut butter and jelly. In fact, we even use dynamic duo in our marketing literature because they're very much a complementary couple products. You got to have the dingo to load the buggy, and the buggy brings the materials out of a building. In the case of demolitions, we found it the right thing to do to launch them together. We speak to them together, and if you had an opportunity to go to the World of Concrete in Las Vegas, we launched them there, and we were at the ARA, the rental show, the following week in Vegas, and we put them together in the booth. We have them, positioned together with the dingo dumping into the buggy on the floor of the show, and they really do go hand in hand. And we tell our customers, do not look at one without the other because they are very much complementary products. So that's the reason. They're very intentional to launch them together, putting them in the same marketing materials together. All our videos combine the two machines, and that's a little bit different. That's typically done separately, individually of different products, and overall in the Toro product lineups. It's
Yeah.
great. It's a really good way to position them.
Yeah, absolutely. From the marketing standpoint, absolutely 100%. What kind of, as you guys kind of got to that point where you discovered kind of like, oh wow, like these are super complementary and they make sense through that. I mean, and that is such a perfect example of kind of like whenever you're trying to tell a story like this and you get on the job site, the surprises that you can kind of happen. Even like you said, I mean, it should have been maybe obvious, but in the context of like how things work within the organization of like, well, this is just how we typically develop products, right? Where I'm on this side of with this product and they're on this side with this product, and that's kind of how it works. But then you have the customer kind of insight and how they're actually going to use the machine. It can be kind of it can open new things up for you as a company, which just kind of goes to show the importance of customer voice there. But from that customer perspective, I think the first question that I have in terms of them being complementary, and that makes perfect sense. They're both electric machines, so if let's say that this was kind of like the first for the indoor demolition and indoor kind of construction side of things, it makes perfect sense too. But you're not only, let's say this is your first electric machine and you decide to get both, and so now you've got two electric machines. How are you guys kind of finding, is that a easier sell? Are they more kind of open to the idea of kind of like, oh well, yeah, this is more attractive to me because there is a complementary machine as part of kind of like a tandem here? Or are you finding kind of like, well, I don't even know if I can keep one of these machines charged. How am I supposed to keep two of them charged?
Mm-hmm.
Which would be like the first challenge. But like, what are you guys seeing from that standpoint in terms of the charging question?
In terms of the charging,
Yeah, like, I don't know. It still feels like that's going to be the first question that people have, right? And I
yeah,
think for indoor, it's going to be less of a hill to climb for you guys because seeking this out because it is electric, and they'll just kind of
yeah,
figure out the charging question.
you,
But
that's it's good, having them together because and again, having the teams working so closely together because yes, charging is a challenge. The controls and for example, we wanted to make the plugins the same. We wanted to make the location just how you go about charging them being the same because we do believe that you'll have one operator or one company renting both machines or buying both machines. So we wanted that the same. But even the controls, the startup, how do you operate the machine? We've made that very consistent. So if you look at the dashboard of each of the machines, they'll be very consistent. The way that the displays of the machine, we did that as all intentional because we figure because they are a really good tandem, you'll have an operator running both. And if they're renting a machine or renting both these machines, we really want the operator to not spend a lot of time learning how to use the machine. If it was quite a different experience, be it charging, operating, service, things like that, they spend a lot of time trying to learn two machines. But if we make them as similar as possible, it makes that learning curve much, much shorter so that they can they don't have to spend their dollars on training. They can spend their time and dollars on actually putting the machines to work. So very intentional that charging, operation, service, making those very, very similar.
yeah, no, absolutely. So now that we've kind of got like the backstory and the context around these three machines, let's talk about them separately, and we're going to start with the with the new Dingo.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get into it, let's kind of rewind a little bit and discuss some of maybe what we talked about kind of last time around the mini skid steer market in general. Now, this isn't just a mini skid steer; it's an electric mini skid steer, and that definitely kind of changes maybe some of the conversation around it. It can still do all of the stuff that its diesel powered brethren can do, but it's obviously going to be, there's going to be certain customers, like you mentioned, with the interior applications that are going to be maybe a little bit more interested in this. But how would you, looking at the category as a whole, kind of zooming out over the last 5 years ago, how would you kind of characterize the growth of this category, and how did that kind of play into the development of this new electric dingo?
Yeah, it's interesting. I know the question's on 5 years, but it's worth looking way back to the late '90s when we started, because I draw a lot of parallels between the interior business and the electrics and the traditional dingo business, as you will. You go back a long time ago. You go back 20, 25 years, and if you look at landscapers, they had two options. They had a wheelbarrow and a shovel, or they had a big skid steer or track loader, and there's nothing in between. And we noticed that this was an opportunity that we could build a smaller machine that could significantly improve a landscape contractor's business efficiency, et cetera, that wouldn't damage the lawn, that would be a big help and get away from wheelbarrows and shovels. And so this was the entire premise of the Dingo was built off of this model, and we've been very successful for 20, 25 years. Now, fast forward in the last five, it's been really amazing to see the growth of the entire industry. because of a number of things. You look at COVID, for example, when everyone was at home and working from home, and how things changed, and a lot of people, honestly, they looked at their backyard. They put in a new patio. They put in a fireplace. They had to build a new fence. And so it really drove a lot of demand for these types of machines. Rebuild your deck, whatever it may be. And it all perfect work for a dingo. And we've really seen a lot of growth because of that. But the other factor's been just the cost of equipment. Like everything else, things have been getting really expensive. And if you look at the bigger equipment, bigger track loaders, big cab track loaders, big cab skid steers and whatnot, not only is it a much bigger, more expensive machine, you have to have a bigger, more expensive trailer, a bigger, more expensive truck. And so the whole package can get extremely expensive. And with a dingo, you can use a smaller, maybe a half-ton truck, smaller trailer, and they're easier to pull. You don't need a special license, and the overall cost of ownership is dramatically less. And that and having dingoes now that are far more capable is what's really driving, I think, the business. And I think a lot of people are recognizing that. So you can get a lot of work done with a lot less cost with a dingo. And that's what we're seeing with landscapers and construction contractors outside. So I tell that story because there are a lot of parallels on the interior side. So I told you about the shovel and the wheelbarrow back in the day, or a big machine. Well, we're looking at talking to interior contractors over the last few years, and they really haven't had a lot of tools inside. And you joke, what they use on the inside of these buildings? Sledgehammers and wheelbarrows. It's not much different. So a lot of parallels there. Yes, there's been some equipment, but some of it's either too big, runs on a gas or diesel engine, or just too light duty for the really heavy duty work that is required inside. And so we recognize this and try to learn from the past. And this new eDingo, our eDingo 500, and now our eDingo TX750 and these buggies, we hope they're going to do for interior construction and demolition what the diesel and gas dingoes did for landscape contractors 25 years. And so far, it's looking like that. And something we're really excited. And so it's been very, very good and very exciting here the past year, and working with essentially a new use case, a new market for these types of products.
Why do you think that the interior stuff you mentioned, like, despite the last, let's just say 15 years, because I think the last 10 to 15 years for really the entire compact segment has just been insane. Some of that was due to the housing crisis in 08, and a lot of guys having to get really lean really quick and getting a lot more comfortable with compact machines. Not only compact machines, but smaller fleets in general, just less machines, being more comfortable with the rental market, all of that good stuff, in terms of just being more nimble on your feet whenever it comes to the tools that you were using. And despite all of that, the crazy growth that's happened in rental and compact, it's really interesting. Like, and you're absolutely right. Like, there hasn't really been maybe like I don't know if tipping point is the right word for this, but like there hasn't really been kind of like a moment when like interior, I've heard from multiple different companies, is growing, and but why is that happening right now? Like, why have we reached maybe kind of like this is the time, and interior is now growing to a point to where they were maybe okay with the hand tools and figuring out other solutions, but now there's so much work going. Is that what it is? Is there's just more interior work right now? And why is that? Why is there more interior work now than maybe
it's so
in the
interesting
past?
too. I just mentioning, the way the world's changed through COVID, and people are spending more time at home and staying home and in the backyard and whatnot. On the other side of it, if you look at how the world's changed and how businesses and where workers are remote more, or people are, urbanization and people living in city centers, and the expense of buildings nowadays, there's a lot more incentive for a company to remodel or renovate a building. Is one thing. The other thing is, if you look around and see factories are turning into condos, and apartments are turning into restaurants. And, I was just at even a restaurant brewery that used to be a factory. And, so a lot of cities, bigger cities, across the country and frankly across the world, are renovating for new uses because the world's changing. I mean, that where people are living, the way people work, and so that's and just the sheer cost of space nowadays. I mean, even in our own headquarters, we needed more space, and so we renovated one side of our building, and we actually used our own equipment on our own project, and you're seeing that all over. It's far cheaper to renovate a space than building a new building. We run a college campus, so we've been doing a lot of work with college campuses, and with the new digital requirements and fiber optics, you're seeing college campuses and changing the way they work with video and things like that. They're gutting full buildings, and they're rebuilding the space to make it more efficient and better for the future. So we've been on projects on big college campuses, basically gutting the inside and demoing and taking down walls and for them to rebuild. And that's happening all over the country.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's one of those things where you kind of see it happening, and I live in a small town, and so I kind of feel like we get the things near the end. Like this is already well established if it's happening elsewhere, and then by the time it gets to where I live, I know that it's definitely like a thing now, and that is 100% accurate. Where our downtown area kind of went dormant in the 80s because of the malls, right? And now, as we know, malls are not as big a thing anymore because of how the world has changed 2-3 times since then. And so you are kind of seeing, whereas things kind of pushed outward from city centers, you're seeing kind of the resuscitation and the renovation of city centers. So you've got, like you said, buildings that were, maybe they were an old shoe store, but they turned into kind of like an eye clinic or a factory or something else kind of like in the meantime. And now they're being kind of redone again, stripped to the kind of bones to be apartments, to be stores again, to be, because of how the world is changing. It is really fascinating to see all of that.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Gary, what is the tipping point? I don't know. I hope it's picking up momentum. That's why I'm on your show. Thank you very much. We're spreading the word. I mean, we've got they're brand new, but some really great tools for these contractors are doing interior construction and demolition, and we know it's happening. It's growing at a tremendous pace, and to factor into this, it's tougher to find skilled labor for that work. And so we hope to make that more efficient so that the labor that they do find can do more of the skilled work and the construction side of it. And these machines, the eDingo and the Buggy, are giving contractors a way to do the really hard manual labor easier and safer to help make way for, I guess, the more profitable construction side of the jobs.
Yeah, I mean, and along with all of this work, you mentioned this as well. So you've got kind of like work that is now starting to generate at a greater volume that is perfect for this machine category, and even this piece of the machine category that is electric. But then you've also got this whole kind of other thing going on with not only the category but compact equipment in general that we were talking about, where contractors are finding more and more uses because of the tools that are available for these machines, because of the fact that, like you said, they're so easy to transport. They're much less cost up front. Right. And that combination of versatility, small size, small cost is just huge. And so a lot of contractors are a lot more open now to kind of experimenting and getting in. You've starting to see within the category itself, the category used to be kind of smaller, like sub 1,000-pound machines. And now you're seeing 1,000-pound is the sweet spot for a lot. You're still seeing smaller machines, but you're also seeing bigger machines. And so like the category itself has really expanded in a big way. You guys, the Dingo is the kind of original of all of these machines. And so you guys have kind of like the original machine. You've kind of seen this through from the early 90s to today, and are seeing kind of a lot of new interest, not just from the interior side, but also for this entire category. So from your perspective, what are you guys doing to differentiate the Toro machine from a lot? Because there's lots of new competition as well. Lots of new brands that are entering this space, maybe not on the electric side. But yeah, like, is that I'm sure that electric strategy is part of the differentiation, and you mentioned the positioning for you guys, but what else is Toro kind of doing on the mini skid side to differentiate from all the new competition and new interests?
Yeah, no, that is a good question, and we did invent the category really, and it's very important to us, and it's our, it's our core business. And so, as you can see with a lot of the competition that's come in, a lot of the competitors, who they are. They do everything, excavators and bigger machines and all kinds of things. And it's a little bit, oh, by the way, they do one machine in this space. And yes, the sweet spot around that 1,000 pound, and trying to make a one size fits all machine. And our approach is different. We don't make the larger equipment. That's not our specialty, but we really focus on the customer. And we know that there's enough use cases that it warrants a broader line of dingos. And so we have our smaller walk behind that for the customers that really want something that's approachable, easy to run, very rental focused. Gas and diesel version, our 427 and our 525, lightweight, very turf friendly, but have very good hydraulic performance. We have our 700, which is a basic machine, less features. That's a little smaller, that's good for material handling, and doesn't have all the extra weight and, of course, the extra cost for a bigger 1,000-pound machine. If you're a contractor that's primarily moving mulch and materials and doing the occasional augering and trenching, it's a perfect machine for that contractor. Then you go to the 1,000, which is like we say, the sweet spot, which is highest performance. We really pride ourselves on having, the Yanmar turbo engine in that machine, high torque, higher torque than just about all the other 1,000 pounds machines, which translates into better hill climbing, better trenching, better augering. We use vertical lift that keeps the load closer to the machine, a shorter machine. I mean, the whole premise behind a dingo is making a small machine. Vertical lift makes that machine smaller, shorter. It allows greater reach for a contractor to reach into the middle of the truck. So, it's better for a lot of those contractors that are running machines all day, and that's what we focus. Could we make it a more universal machine? Sure, but we pride ourselves on high power, high performance. And then the controls. We have patented controls that we believe are the best in the industry. And like what I said earlier in the show, a lot of our customers are renting, and they have a contractor that has a lot of different operators. And so having a machine that you can get on and learn very quickly and operate very easily is very important. So we pride ourselves on really developing and engineering these controls to be easy to use, easy to run, less fatigue. That's all the dingos. But we even go further. We have a 1,300 model, and we even have our biggest machine, which is the 2,000. So our approach is to really tailor the product to the customer use case. Bigger machines for the heavier materials, material handling, down to the smaller ones that are really gentle on the turf, good for high-end lawns and doing all the things that you expect a dingo to do.
Yeah, I mean, and it really does kind of represent 30 years that you guys have put into this, right? Like the understanding of the market, the understanding of kind of like what exactly customers are looking out of these looking for out of these machines.
Right.
And then creating machines to fit that need, rather than, like you said, some of these machines are kind of like a one size fits all kind of Goldilocks solution.
Mm-hmm.
Which may be great for certain folks, but then there's the other guys that are, this is the machine for the thing that they're doing. So now you guys, this is not the new machine, the eDingo TX750. This is not, that is the new electric dingo. It's not the first electric dingo. The first one was the eDingo 500. Now, briefly kind of give us like a understanding of like maybe the development of that machine, what you guys were initially, what were you guys intending on doing with the introduction of that electric dingo, the 500 size, and then kind of maybe how you built off what you learned from the 500 into the development of the 750?
Yeah, that's a good question. We launched actually our first generation eDingo in 2020, and that was really just a conversion of one of our gas wheeled versions. It allowed us to learn a little bit about the market and learn what customers wanted, and that really went into our second generation eDingo 500, which is what we sell today. And so we specifically made that machine for that interior construction market because we saw the need. And we'll see a lot of construction equipment that are electric just for the sake of being electric. We found that we're using electric because it's the only thing that really works well inside. No emissions, no noise. And so that's our position on it. It's not necessarily we have a dingo that just saves on gas money, and it doesn't necessarily resonate with contractors. So we position that eDingo as an interior and is designed as such. So the eDingo 500 is narrow. It's only 30 inches wide to get through a 3.0 door. We made it short so it fits on an elevator. The rear overhang on the machine, we actually made that as short as we possibly could because when you're turning down a hallway, doing a 90-degree turn, you can't have a big back end on the machine and because it'll hit the wall, frankly. We did things like our loader arms are solid 3/4 inch steel plate, and because we know that we've given contractors these machines and we just let them use them and naturally and see what they use them for. And I hate to say, but they're running right into walls. They knock down concrete walls. And so we said, all right, that's what we got to build these for. And that's what we did. So in short, we really made it for that interior contractor. And we started with the wheel. They're more efficient, smaller, and a lot of the floors that these machines are being operated on, you can't damage them. And so that wheeled eDingo has been really good for that. It's really gentle on the floor, doesn't mark the floor, and so it's been good for that. But we quickly learned that when you're knocking down walls and creating a bunch of debris that you need probably a tractor machine to get over that concrete, that rubble. And so we started quickly on the new eDingo TX, which is what we just launched here a few weeks ago. So same technology, same battery technology, same controllers, same similar things with the eDingo 500, but yeah, tracked. Tracked is a much bigger challenge. They consume a lot more power than a wheeled one. So that's been an engineering challenge that we've been able to work through. We have to balance energy use and the amount of batteries you put on the machine because it still needs to be small. So it was a pretty substantial engineering challenge, but we figured it out, and again, they're very complementary products themselves. We are more for little smaller applications and for floors that you can't damage. But if you're doing some really heavy duty demo, driving over concrete piles and in dirt or taking out concrete floors and have to get into the dirt, that's the machine for you.
Yeah, so how do they compare kind of, I guess, capability wise? And so they're pretty close already, and like you said, they even could be complementary machines in terms of like it's not like you're going to be, if you have a 500, you're missing out on just like so much more power or capability with the 750. It's just a different type of tool. But how do they kind of compare when it does come to capability or power?
Well, the 500 has about a 515 rated operating capacity. 750 is right about that, 750 pounds. They're both 31 inches wide. The 750 has a really cool feature. It's also short, but we have a really cool feature where it has a fold-up platform. So if you want to put the machine on an elevator, for example, you can fold up that platform. So physically, we tried to make them as close as possible. Although, again, like I said, the track unit requires a lot more power to run. So we have to put 10 batteries on the 750 versus 6 on the 500. So it's a little bigger frame, but the same width. Capability, like I've just mentioned, that lift capacity. You get a little bit more breakout force with the tracked one. You get a little more traction. A little more torque out of the wheel motors. But both very capable. They both run a breaker, like a hydraulic breaker. The runtime's very similar. You got a little more hydraulic flow out of the 750, 11 GPM versus 6.5 GPM. But yeah, I'd really differentiate them by the use case, wheel versus tracked. If you need tracked, it's a good machine for that. But it's not that the 750 is substantially more capable. They're just different for different use cases more.
Yeah. And when it comes to the runtime, now, were you guys able to were you shooting for equal runtime as the 500? And how long is the runtime on both machines?
Yeah, that's absolutely critical. We set all along, the development project. We can't have a contractor start running the machine in the morning and have it run out of charge at 2 p.m. before the day is done. It's just non-negotiable. So yeah, so we shoot for an 8-hour runtime. all day runtime. And again, we've been working for months and months and months with real contractors, and we've been, we tell that story. We brought actually a used prototype to the ARA show, and it generated a lot of conversation. But we had a machine we gave to a contractor for 5 months, and we wanted to understand how much power do they actually use in a day, so that we knew what this all-day runtime actually meant. And again, we had to make design adjustments so they do that. And so we're very confident that a contractor that's going to rent or buy one of these, it's going to last all day. We know they start at 6 a.m., 7 a.m. Sometimes they run to 5, 6 p.m. at night. And we know the work they do, and we know that the machines will last because we have real world testing that shows that. And then charging. We know that when they're done with their work day, they can plug it in, and when they come back in the early morning, that they start it up, it'll be fully charged and ready to go for the next day. And again, that's been working out very well. We've been really, really excited at how well they've been performing.
What are the what does the charging look like on it in terms of what you need? I mean, can you do this with a 120, or do you need a 240? What does it kind of look like in terms of what you need in terms of infrastructure to charge it?
Both machines are going to come with a standard cord so that you can plug them into a regular 240 volt outlet, which sometimes people generically call a dryer outlet. So if you were hooking up an electric dryer in your house and had an electrician put that outlet in your house, roughly that's what that means. So yeah, we can charge in less than 8 hours with that type of setup. Sooner typically, but we'll say, that's kind of the charge time. If a contractor only had 120 volts available, we do have an optional plug to plug it into 120. Now, the only issue with that would be the 750 would take close to 24 hours to charge. The Buggy is much quicker because it's got less batteries, but yeah, that option's available. And then we've also got an option, an EVSE style plug, which is the J17 protocol. Translate all those numbers and letters, basically what an electric car has.
Right, or used to have before they started getting replaced with Tesla proprietary, but yeah.
Exactly, not the Tesla plug, but yeah, if you had a lot of electric equipment or electric car, if you had one of those chargers hanging in your garage or at a shop, if you're a rental company, have one of those chargers that plugs right into our machine, and we have that as an option as well. So
yeah, so I mean, it really sounds like, and honestly, like, this is one of those things, like, you're just not ever going to have a good time with 120 or 110. If this is a thing you're serious about, then I would say that the bare minimum is definitely 240. But it's cool that to me, even at 240, you're looking at like 8 hours, and definitely overnight. You plug it in and it's going to be ready to go for the next day. So I mean, I don't see that as too. I don't see it. I mean, and honestly, the fact that you guys even make it like, sure, you can do the 110 or 120 if you want, but it's kind of like that's nice to me. Like, I don't see it as like I feel like if you're serious about this, and especially you're going to have two machines, then you need to be thinking about getting a 240 volt, or at least having access to that
for sure.
On the site, for sure. So in terms of you mentioned that it's a 31-inch wide machine, but there is a narrow and a wide track model of the TX750. Tell us a little bit about what are the differences. Which one of those is the narrow, which is the wide, and kind of what the measurements are, and what the kind of what is the difference between the narrow and the wide track, really?
Yeah, I'll start with the narrow track. So the eDingo TX750 comes in a narrow track that's 31 inches wide, and then we have a wide track version that is 37 inches wide. The nice thing is, if you look at our TX700, 1000 turbo, our TX1300, the diesel versions, we share the exact same part number, both the narrow and the wide tracks. Common parts, and so that's been a good thing for us and for our dealers and our rental houses. So we don't have a lot of unique parts for these machines. So virtually all the machine is the same on the narrow versus the wide track. Some slight differences with the track and the track frames, the way that in the sprockets. But for the most part, we would sell the narrow track for all interior applications. rarely would you want a wide track because it simply doesn't get in the door. But the one area that we are pursuing is the landscaping type applications for either municipalities and cities that have an electric requirement, or if you're working around schools or hospitals that really need something quiet, but are doing some of the landscape work. Or for example, we did a job just last summer at a golf course where we had to take out a patio, and they could do it in basic silence of taking out a patio while, again, the golf customers are golfing while the machine's running and it's not disturbing them. So in those cases where you need electric, quiet, or no emission vehicle, we have the wide track for pretty standard landscaping applications.
Looking forward kind of into the future a little bit on the electric versus diesel debate. I mean, at this point, I feel pretty comfortable in seeing a future for both and maybe even hybrid machines or some form of those machines kind of moving forward. But like for you guys, do you guys currently see diesel as always kind of having a place within the Dingo lineup, or do you kind of see the electric Dingo? I mean, you mentioned with the wide track, you're seeing more demand for electric machines, not just on the interior side. You're seeing them on the exterior of landscapers and stuff like that. Theoretically, the charging should get better, the battery technology should advance, and you'll have even more demand for electric machines maybe in the future. But at the same time, like that makes sense. But at the same time, it doesn't feel that way, right? Like I don't. No matter what we're talking about, if it's on the road cars or off the road equipment or construction equipment or whatever, it just, the further we kind of go and get into this, it just kind of feels like there's going to be certain fuels for certain situations. And is that how you guys kind of feel about the kind of the power situation kind of moving forward? As electric will be for certain things, but then diesel will kind of always have its place as like the most versatile of the options? Or how are you guys seeing that right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Diesel's not going anywhere. And you just can't beat it. It's just it works so well, especially, these machines, like I say, we're making these more and more capable, and for doing these heavy duty trenching operations. And that's one example. Or if you're putting in, fencing off 30 acres or something, and you're running this thing all day long, you just can't beat a diesel, and it's not going anywhere. And that's why I say diesels are great for outdoors, and electric works great for indoors. Now, a lot of things have been happening, in the world with electric vehicles and whatnot. And, we watch that closely. So we, are taking advantage of new battery technology to make that, again, higher density batteries, improved charging. Is it going to get to a point where it's going to be a bigger thing outdoors? Yeah, it could be. Not anytime soon, I don't believe. Diesel, we're following the diesel technology and looking at some cleaner alternatives as well on that. But yeah, just in general, diesel's here to stay. Electric's here to stay. They're great use cases for both. It really has been working out well for us.
We'll move into kind of the buggies now, and like we were talking at the top here. You announced these are complementary machines. You guys have announced these two together, introduced them together, encouraging customers to use them together. So the two new battery powered buggies are the Ultra Buggy E2500 THL and the Ultra Buggy E2500 TS. So you have the THL and the TS models of the E2500. Now, the THL is focused on high lift, thus the THL part of the name, high lift, while the TS looks like it's focused more on higher capacity. But correct me if I'm wrong. Tell us a little bit about the two different models, why you guys did the two different models. I assume it's kind of a similar situation to the wide track versus narrow track on the 750, but tell us a little bit about the two different models of this machine, what their differences are, and kind of why you guys felt the need to split this model into kind of two different configurations.
Absolutely. We created the, tracked high lift, THL.
Okay.
And one of our project managers that she ran the project, she like to say that the THL is for taking materials out of the building, and the swivel is for taking materials into the building. And so more the difference, not necessarily capacity difference, it's the swivel is a swiveling tub, and so we didn't have a high lift swivel version. So we had one for swivel applications, which is great for doing concrete pours inside, doing some landscaping outside. So similar where municipalities need quiet or low emissions type of applications, it works good for that. if you think of a concrete pour inside a building, the swivel works great for it. I'll give you one example. We went along on a concrete pour at a middle school in Wisconsin where they had they had the concrete truck outside. We poured 2,500 pounds of concrete into the swivel buggy, brought it in through the front door, through the lobby, down the hallway, around the corner, and they were rebuilding the bathrooms in the school. And so they put 8 yards of concrete into this bathroom floor. And so the only way they could have done this, and they were just thrilled, the only way they could have done this was several wheelbarrow loads. So if any concrete people listening, you know how much 8 yards is in wheelbarrows going through lobbies, down the hall, up, around the corner. That's a lot of work and takes a lot of time, especially when the mud is hot. But that's the use case for the swivel machine, 2,500-pound capacity. Now, the high lift also has a 2,500 capacity when it's not lifted. It's got sensors so that you don't exceed it when you're lifting up high, but it's a 1,250-pound limit at full extension, which is a 76-inch height. So the primary use for that machine is, and I said the complementary product, when you're doing demolition. So you have a eDingo and you're breaking down a concrete wall or knocking walls down or tearing out a floor. You can break it with a floor scraper or a breaker, pop that attachment off, put a grappler bucket on or a regular bucket, load the high lift. You can take that and similar example, if you have to go down hallways and around corners and through lobbies, you can go outside the building, drive over to a 30-yard dumpster, lift it up all the way to 76 inches and dump that material into the dumpster. And again, tremendously easier for these operators that are doing this by hand with these big Rubbermaid tubs, as we call them, or wheelbarrows bringing this stuff out. It's significantly easier on their back and time, to be honest. And because the other way that they would do it is bring all the debris outside, dump it on the ground, and then finding a bigger track loader or whatnot to scoop it up and then dump it into the dumpster. So saves a ton of labor, far more productive. We've seen, we were at a school, we had a contractor demo out 2 floors in a school, and it saved them almost 2 weeks by having these machines.
Wow.
And their words for it is an absolute lifesaver to them. Being able to load this high lift buggy, for example, carry it out, dump it into the dumpster, and come back, load it again. You imagine just how much faster that is. So
yeah,
that's the main use cases for the 2 machines.
Okay. So the swivel, would you kind of characterize the swivel as being like really mostly appropriate for concrete type work, or is there any other type of work that when would you, apart from the concrete, how would you decide between, is it really like you said, like one's for going in and one's for coming out and you should just buy both, or like what is kind of like the most realistic kind of how to choose between the two?
Yeah, so the swivel, yes, it's great for concrete, and we've talking to these contractors, and we've been on a lot of demo jobs, and there's some sort of plumbing component to a large percentage of them. So meaning cutting out the slab, putting in new drain pipe and piping and whatnot, and then repouring. So yeah, pouring concrete's a big part of it. But again, in these landscape type applications, so we actually renamed them. If you remember, we called them mud buggies.
Yeah.
And that's sort of a universal term, a mud buggy. We changed our name to Ultra Buggy because we didn't want to people think of it as a one-trick pony. So contractors are using it for gravel, sand, wood chips. We had another customer, bringing out infield mix for a ball field. It works great for all those types of applications. So yeah, a lot of different applications. Interior, yeah, concrete's a big one though.
Yeah, and so I mean, is it similar to the 750 where the primary kind of, I guess, customer kind of target here is going to be the interior, or are you seeing kind of maybe some, like on the landscaping side with the 750, you could see some kind of like demand for an electric machine some of the time? Is that similar here, or are these customers mostly interested in interior kind of applications out of this?
Mostly interior, and like I say, the being outside landscaping, yeah, it's a bit of a unique application, having a municipality that requires electric, or even some of these, being around a school or a hospital or a golf course that requires a quiet machine. But yeah, primarily interior.
Gotcha. And what are we looking at in terms of run times out of both of the buggies? How long does a charge last?
Yeah, the buggy, same thing. And again, that's why we bring them both to these same jobs. And yeah, the buggy doesn't have auxiliary hydraulics, so a lot less need of or draw or demand from the batteries. So yeah, all day runtime. We've been easily exceeding that. It's been rare that they use a full charge on a whole day's work, especially even on, I talked about this college application where we had a contractor. He was in and out of that building all day long and still had plenty of charge left. So
Yeah.
all day, 8 hours. And yeah, we're confident because we've had real contractors prove that it can do that. So
And kind of the final question that we'll kind of discuss here on these three machines that I know in the language of the release and kind of, we've talked several times about the rental houses, and I know rental is a big kind of focus for these machines. I guess the first part of this question is this is this the type of machine that you feel like is going to be rented more often than purchased in most situations, at least for right now? And then the second part of the question would be, why is that more appealing to the rental houses in terms of like an investment they're making into a machine, or why are they adding more electric machines to their fleets, or why are they interested in doing that?
yeah, it's a good question. Yes, we definitely believe, especially initially, that these are going to be great for electric. They're going to have great ROI. If there's any rental houses listening, yeah, this is great ROI and a great potentially new customer for a lot of rental companies. As we're trying to get the word out, these interior construction and demolition contractors, we've gotten to know a lot of them, and they're doing a new project every week, and some of the bigger ones are doing them all over the country, and so it lends itself perfectly to rental because they're doing something different week to week, month to month, and the jobs differ. Like I said, they'll be doing all demo week 1 through 3, and then they're going to start construction on week 4 and up. And so it really lends itself well to rental so they can flex the different machines
Mm,
very well. So yeah, absolutely. And not only that, it's a newer category for us and for these contractors. And so yeah, they want to rent before they buy. And they want to go out and we're seeing a lot of contractors are going out and say, hey, let's just rent a couple of these.
hmm
Let's have them for a week. Let's see if they work for us. Let's see, are they as good as they say? Toro keeps saying they run all day. Will they actually run all day? And let's just rent one. And
Yeah.
we welcome that. So contractors, please go to your favorite rental store and ask for them. And we hope to be getting them in rental houses across the country.
Awesome. Well, Sam, I'll give you the final word on this, but thank you so much for joining us. We always love talking to you about the latest from Toro. But yeah, I'll give you the final word. Where should customers go to find out more information about the new eDingo TX750 and the new Ultra Buggy E2500 models?
Yes, thank you very much, Wayne. Yes, I appreciate it. Something we're very excited about. But please go to our website, toro.com. We've got all the machines on our website. The eDingo TX750 and both of the high lift and the swivel buggies. Your Toro SiteWorks construction dealer will have information on these machines. And again, we're trying to get these in rental houses across the country. Talk to your favorite rental company that's carrying Toro, and they should be coming to a job site near you. We hope in the future. So
That's right.
do
All
that
right.
very much.
Sam, thank you so much, man. We really appreciate it. Have a good one, buddy.
Yep. Thank you.